never thought humiliation could taste like fire in my throat, but that's exactly what it felt like when the laughter echoed around me. And the worst part? I didn't even do anything wrong. I can still hear their voices, sharp, mocking, cruel. Someone had taken my mistake, my clumsy words during a team presentation, and twisted them into a joke. In seconds, my colleagues were laughing, the sound swelling like a cruel wave until I thought I'd drown in it. My cheeks burned, my palms trembled, and I needed an escape. But every door felt too far, and every exit would mean surrender. So I did something ridiculous, desperate. I spun toward the first stranger I saw in the cafe connected to our office lobby, the man in the corner seat, tall, broad-shouldered, perfectly composed in a dark suit that fit like it had been tailored to his soul. His eyes were unreadable, his expression calm. Something about his stillness made me believe, just for one reckless second, that he could save me. I walked up, heart pounding, humiliation burning behind my eyes, and before my brain could stop me, I begged. "Please," I whispered, the word barely leaving my lips. "Pretend you're my boyfriend." He blinked once, slowly. Then instead of laughing or pushing me away, his mouth curved into the faintest, most devastating smile I'd ever seen. The thing that haunts me isn't the humiliation. It's how natural it felt to reach for him, as if my body knew him even though my mind swore he was a stranger. And that was the beginning. I should tell you about me before you think I'm insane. My name is Arya. I've worked as a junior marketing associate for just over a year, the kind of person who always blends into the background. I'm not bold, I'm not reckless. I rehearse emails 3 times before sending them. I color code my grocery list. And yet that day, I asked a stranger to be mine, if only for a moment. And God help me, he said yes. He stood towering over me, his presence cutting through the laughter like a shield. His arm slipped around my waist with practiced ease, pulling me gently against his side. I felt the strength of him even through the layers of fabric, the steady rhythm of his breathing, the faint scent of cedarwood, and something sharper, cleaner. Money, maybe. The room shifted. The mocking smiles faltered. A hush fell, as if they realized suddenly that I wasn't alone, that the girl they'd chosen to tear apart had someone powerful in her corner. I don't remember what he said. Something cool, measured, with just enough steel in his tone to silence the room. But I remember how it felt, standing there with his hand at my waist, his presence wrapping around me like armor. For the first time in months, I felt safe. And then, just as quickly, the moment ended. We stepped outside, into the quiet of the street, the city humming around us like nothing had happened. I expected him to let go, to laugh at me, to call me foolish for dragging him into my mess. Instead, he kept his hand at my back, steady, guiding. "You don't owe me an explanation," he said, voice low, velvet edged with something unreadable. "But I'll take one if you want to give it." I turned, my heart still beating too fast. His eyes, his eyes, dark, focused, as if he was seeing past the mask I wore and into the trembling core of me. My voice cracked. I hated that it cracked. I couldn't stand there and let them. I trailed off. He nodded once, as though he understood everything I hadn't said. For a moment, silence stretched between us, heavy but not uncomfortable. Charged. I became aware of how close we stood, the heat radiating from him, the way his thumb brushed my back absent-mindedly, like he wasn't ready to let go. That was when the absurd thought hit me. This stranger was safer than anyone I'd known in years. I should have walked away. Thanked him, apologized, and left. But my feet wouldn't move. My tongue betrayed me. "Why did you help me?" I asked softly. Something flickered in his gaze, something dangerous, almost amused. Because, he said, you asked. It was such a simple answer, but in that moment it felt like a promise. I didn't know who he was. Not yet. Not that he was the kind of man who didn't just wear suits. He owned the buildings those suits walked into. Not that his signature could shift markets, or that people whispered his name in boardrooms like a prayer. All I knew was that a stranger had saved me when I was drowning, and that was how I met the man who would change everything. I didn't plan to see him again. Honestly, I told myself it was just a strange, humiliating chapter in my life, one I would fold neatly, tuck away, and never read again. But life has a way of testing your resolve. 2 days later, I walked into the cafe downstairs from my office, clutching a notebook like it was a lifeline, and there he was. Same corner table, same composure. His suit was a deep charcoal today, his tie loosened just enough to hint at rebellion. He sat with a laptop open, a glass of black coffee untouched, beside him, as if he owned not just the table but the air itself. And maybe he did, because the moment I saw him, I forgot how to breathe. I told myself to look away, pretend I didn't recognize him, pretend he hadn't wrapped an arm around me like it belonged there, hadn't silenced an entire room with a single look. But when his eyes lifted from the screen and found mine, God, it felt like gravity itself shifted. He smirked almost imperceptibly and tilted his head toward the empty chair across from him. An invitation. Against all logic, I walked over. You. Again, I said, trying for casual but hearing the nervous lilt in my voice. Me, he replied, closing his laptop with deliberate slowness. And you. His gaze lingered as if he was cataloging every flicker of expression on my face. Still in need of a boyfriend? Or was that a one-time performance? Heat rushed to my cheeks. I didn't mean to drag you into that. And yet you did, he said, leaning back in his chair, his tone more amused than annoyed. And I didn't mind. That admission settled between us like a secret. I sat down, fingers clutching my notebook. The air felt charged, like static before a storm. I should have asked his name, but somehow it felt dangerous, like knowing it would make this too real, too permanent. Instead, I asked the safer question. Do you always sit here? Only when I want to be found. His answer stole the air from my lungs. Found. As if he'd been waiting. As if some invisible thread had pulled us both to this exact moment. Silence stretched, but it wasn't empty. It pulsed. His gaze didn't wander, didn't flicker. It stayed on me, steady, unflinching, as though he was peeling back every layer I'd spent years hiding behind. I looked down, pretending to scribble in my notebook. My fingers trembled. My heart wouldn't calm. People are going to stare, I muttered. Let them, he said smoothly. They'll assume you're mine again. The words hit me low, like a spark in my chest. My breath caught, and I hated how much I wanted it to be true. He leaned forward slightly, his voice softer now, more dangerous. And what if I said I didn't mind pretending a little longer? I looked up, and for the first time I let myself really take him in. The sharp lines of his jaw, the faint shadow of stubble, the way his tie loosened as though rules were something he bent, not followed. He looked like a man who could destroy me with a single choice, and I couldn't look away. Why? I whispered. He studied me for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he said, Because I liked the way you looked at me that day. Like I wasn't a stranger. His honesty unraveled me. No one ever said things like that, not in my world, not with such precision. I wanted to deflect, to laugh, to remind him that this was all ridiculous, that we didn't even know each other's names. But the words wouldn't come, because deep down, I didn't want to stop this, whatever this was. Instead, I asked the question I'd been avoiding. "What's your name?" His lips curved, slow and deliberate, like he'd been waiting for me to ask. "Adrian." The name settled on my tongue, solid and dangerous. "Adrian." I told him mine, and the sound of it in his voice when he repeated it, Aria, felt like he was tasting it, like he was testing the shape of me. After that, time bent strangely. Minutes passed in bursts, in silences heavy with meaning, in glances that lingered too long. He asked questions about my work, about what I wanted, about why I always looked like I was bracing for impact. Questions no one else dared to ask, and I answered him. Against every wall I'd built, I answered. By the time I left the cafe, the world felt tilted. My pulse was still racing, my skin humming. He didn't ask for my number. He didn't need to. Some part of me knew I'd see him again, as inevitable as the tide. That night, lying awake, I kept replaying one detail I hadn't noticed in the moment. The way the barista had straightened when she saw him. The way two men in suits at the back had nodded with a kind of reverence as he passed. Adrian wasn't just anyone, but I didn't know yet that the man who pretended to be my boyfriend for 5 minutes was worth more than everyone in that room, combined. And I had no idea how dangerous it would be to fall for him. The third time I saw Adrian, it wasn't an accident. I'd been walking home in the rain, clutching my bag against my chest when I spotted him standing beneath the awning of the very cafe where it had all started. No laptop this time. No half-finished coffee. Just him, waiting. The rain turned the world silver, soft and blurred. But he was sharp. Every line of him carved against the storm. His gaze caught mine instantly, like he'd known I'd be there. "Aria," he said. Just my name, but it sounded different from anyone else's voice. Low, deliberate, like it meant something. I stopped in my tracks, my umbrella dripping, my breath caught. What are you doing here?" "Waiting for you." His answer was so simple, so certain that it left no room for doubt. I should have laughed. I should have brushed past him. But instead, I walked closer, the rain dampening my hair, the thunder in the distance echoing the thunder in my chest. He reached for my bag, slipping it from my shoulder like it belonged to him. "You shouldn't walk home alone in weather like this," he said. "I'm not fragile," I muttered, though my voice trembled. "No," he agreed, his eyes holding mine. "But you're precious." The word landed like a confession, heavy and unexpected. I didn't know how to respond. My heart raced, my breath shallow, and when his hand brushed mine, barely a touch, almost an accident, I felt the spark of it everywhere. We ended up in the cafe again, the storm raging outside while the world inside seemed to still. The air smelled of coffee and rain, warm and bitter all at once. We sat across from each other, but it felt like there was no distance at all. He leaned forward, forearms resting on the table, his gaze locked to mine. "Tell me the truth, Aria. That day, when you asked me to pretend, was it only desperation? Or did you feel it too?" The question unraveled me. I opened my mouth, but no words came. Because how could I explain the way his presence had wrapped around me, the way my body had trusted him before my mind caught up? I swallowed hard. "I don't know." "You do." His tone was soft, but unyielding. His eyes searched me, not for answers, but for honesty. I felt it too. The room seemed to pulse around us. I tried to look away, but his intensity held me captive. "Adrian," I whispered his name like a warning, though I wasn't sure who I was warning, him or me. He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. Warm, solid. My pulse leapt instantly, like it recognized him. "Say it," he murmured. "What?" My voice shook. "That you want this, that you want me." The silence between us was deafening. The rain pounded harder against the windows, thunder rolling, but all I could hear was the rush of my own blood. I should have said no. I should have pulled my hand away, but my fingers curled into his instead, holding on like I'd been waiting my whole life for this anchor. Yes, I breathed. I want this. His eyes darkened, a flicker of triumph and something deeper, something dangerous. His thumb traced my knuckles, slow, deliberate. Then stop pretending we're strangers. I leaned forward before I could think, before reason could catch me. The space between us dissolved. His breath brushed my lips warm and steady, and when he finally kissed me, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't reckless. It was deliberate, claiming, like he was sealing something he already knew belonged to him. The taste of him lingered, coffee, rain, and something I couldn't name, but would never forget. My world tilted. I'd kissed before, but never like this. Never with the weight of something so inevitable it felt like destiny. When we broke apart, my chest heaved, my thoughts scattered. He kept his forehead against mine, his breath uneven, his voice a whisper against my skin. You don't know what you've started, Arya. I think I do, I whispered back. But then, just as the moment could deepen, the barista's voice cut through the air, calling his name. Not just Adrian, but Mr. Cross. The sound froze me, because I knew that name. Everyone in the city did. Adrian Cross, the elusive millionaire investor whose signature toppled companies and built empires. My stomach dropped. My fingers trembled in his. He didn't flinch, didn't deny it. He only looked at me with that same devastating calm and said softly, "Now you know." And in that instant, the kiss that had felt like a beginning suddenly tasted like a complication. The night I learned who he really was, I didn't sleep. Adrian Cross. The name pulsed through me like a warning siren. He wasn't just the man who held me in a cafe or kissed me like I was something rare. He was power, influence. A man people whispered about with awe and fear, and I was no one. By morning, my chest ached with the weight of it. I told myself to stay away, to bury the spark before it burned me alive. But the universe, or fate, or whatever cruel force governs these things, had other plans, because the very next evening my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. And the moment I answered, I heard his voice. "Dinner," Adrian said. Not a question, a command wrapped in velvet. "I don't think that's a good idea," I stammered. "I didn't ask if it was," he replied smoothly. "I'll send a car." And just like that, resistance crumbled, because beneath the fear, beneath the logic screaming no, was a hunger I couldn't deny. The car pulled up in front of a glass tower that seemed to pierce the sky. His building, his world. I stepped out, my heels clicking against marble, my reflection following me in the endless glass. When the elevator doors opened, there he was. No suit tonight. Just black slacks and a white shirt with the top buttons undone, sleeves rolled to his forearms. Casual but still devastating. His eyes swept over me slowly like a touch. "You came." "I shouldn't have," I whispered. "But you did." His lips curved. "That's all that matters." Dinner was served on a balcony overlooking the glittering skyline. The city stretched out beneath us, alive, chaotic, unaware that my heart was unraveling at the hands of one man. Conversation flowed easier than I expected. He asked about my dreams, my fears, the little things no one ever noticed. And I told him. Too much, maybe. But every time he listened, like my words carried weight, like I carried weight. At some point I laughed, an unguarded, unpolished sound I hadn't heard from myself in years. His gaze softened at the sound, and something shifted between us. "Arya," he said quietly, "you don't see yourself, do you?" "What do you mean?" "You think you're small, forgettable." He leaned closer, his voice low. Certain, but I see you, and I can't forget you. The words stole the air from my lungs. Before I could answer, he reached across the table, fingers brushing my wrist. Heat surged through me. I shouldn't be here, I breathed. Yes, you should, he countered. His hand slid up, curling around mine, firm and unyielding. You belong here. The tension broke like a wave. One moment I was sitting across from him, trembling. The next I was in his arms, his mouth on mine, the city lights blurring behind us. This kiss was different. No hesitation, no careful restraint. It was fire, claiming and consuming. His hands framed my face, strong and steady, while mine fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. Adrian. I gasped against his lips. This is unstoppable, he finished, his voice rough, his breath uneven. The world narrowed to the heat of his body, the sound of his heartbeat against mine, the dizzying certainty that I was falling too fast to catch myself. And then, as quickly as it began, he pulled back. His forehead pressed to mine, his chest rising and falling. This isn't simple, he whispered. I know. My voice shook, but I didn't let go. I've made enemies, he said, his tone edged with something dark. People who would use you to get to me. Fear coiled in my stomach, but deeper than the fear was something else. Something fierce. Then let them try. His eyes burned with something raw, almost dangerous. You don't understand what you're saying. Maybe not, I admitted, but I understand what I feel. For a heartbeat, silence. Then with a low growl that was half frustration, half surrender, he kissed me again. It wasn't careful, it wasn't safe. It was everything breaking at once. And in that moment I knew. This wasn't pretend anymore. It hadn't been for a long time. But even as I clung to him, as the world fell away, a shadow lingered in the corner of my mind. Because nothing this powerful, this consuming, could come without consequences. And I was about to learn just how much it would cost. The next morning the world felt impossibly bright. The sun poured through my bedroom window, but I barely noticed it. I was still wrapped in the remnants of last night. Adrian's scent on my skin, the memory of his hands on mine, the taste of his lips lingering like fire. But reality was relentless. Coffee cups and phone notifications didn't pause for stolen nights. Emails piled up, and my reflection in the mirror reminded me that the girl who had begged a stranger to be her boyfriend was now tangled in something far beyond her comprehension. And then my phone buzzed. One name on the screen. Adrian, I answered. I need you, he said immediately, voice low, commanding. No preamble. I'm at work, I whispered, my chest tightening. I don't care. His words made the world shrink to just the space between us. I didn't question him, I didn't resist, not anymore. By the time I reached his penthouse, the city lights were beginning to wink awake. He met me at the door, tie undone, sleeves rolled, casual perfection. His eyes burned into mine with that same dangerous intensity that had me trembling since the first day. You came, he said, voice half accusation, half relief. I always do, I said softly, and then he pulled me into his arms. Hard, protective, possessive. My body melted into his, my lips finding his as if we'd been waiting for this moment all our lives. This kiss was no longer tentative. It was claiming and surrendering all at once. His hands tangled in my hair and the small of my back, pressing me impossibly close. I could feel the tension, the fear, the desire, all mingling into something overwhelming. We broke apart for air, foreheads pressed together. The world outside could have ended and I wouldn't have noticed. I can't hide anything from you, he said, voice hoarse. Not my life, not my enemies, not my heart. I don't know if I can protect you completely, Arya, but I know I can't stop wanting you. My chest tightened. And if I can't handle it? Then we handle it together, he whispered. Always. The declaration, raw and unshakable, made tears prick my eyes. Because in that moment I realized that Adrian wasn't just a man who had saved me from humiliation. He was a man who would stand by me when everything else fell apart. We moved to the balcony, overlooking the city that sparkled beneath us. His hand found mine, fingers entwined effortlessly, a silent promise. I leaned against him, letting myself sink into the warmth of his body. You're terrifying, I admitted softly. And you love it, he teased. But there was a softness, under his gaze, a vulnerability he didn't show anyone. Maybe, I murmured. He pressed a kiss to my temple, lingering. I've been waiting for you, Arya. I've wanted you in ways I can't even explain, and now I have you. You. Something broke in me then, a dam I hadn't known existed. I clung to him, whispered his name like a prayer, letting go of every fear, every doubt. His hands framed my face, his lips captured mine again, slower this time, savoring the closeness, the connection, the surrender. We didn't rush. We didn't need to. Every touch, every look, every breath was a confession. I felt his heart hammer against mine, matching pulse for pulse. And I realized that desire wasn't just heat or longing. It was trust, vulnerability, the kind of intimacy that binds souls, not just bodies. When we finally pulled back, the city around us seemed to hold its breath. I rested my forehead against his chest, listening to the steady beat that had become my anchor. Adrian, I whispered. I trust you. His arms tightened around me, as if he'd been holding on for centuries. And I'll never give you a reason not to, he promised. The weight of his words, the sincerity, the depth of feeling. It was overwhelming. For the first time in my life, I wasn't pretending. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't small. I belonged here, in his arms, in his world, in his life. And as the city sparkled below, we stood together on that balcony, two souls who had collided in the most improbable way, realizing that love, true, unguarded, fearless love, was worth every risk. Because in the end, it wasn't just about pretending to be something for a moment. It was about finding someone who could see you in all your flaws, all your fear, and still choose you, every single time. And I knew with every fiber of my being that I would never let him go.